When did you last actually flip over the tortilla bag in your kitchen and read what's printed on the back? Most people never do, and every brand on this list is counting on exactly that. Here's the part worth knowing before we start. The dough conditioner used across a wide share of commercial flour tortillas in this country, l-cysteine, is most often made from human hair or duck feathers. That's not internet folklore. That comes from a survey run by the Vegetarian Resource Group, a nonprofit that called manufacturers and suppliers directly and asked where the compound actually comes from. Roughly 80% of it today traces back to Chinese duck feathers. The label just says l-cysteine. Nothing about the source is required to appear anywhere on the package, and legally, none of it has to. Separately, a purified wood pulp fiber called cellulose shows up as a texture filler in tortilla after tortilla, corn and flour both, brand after brand, and we're going to show you exactly where it's confirmed on the actual current label, not a rumor about it. It's legally approved, it's not dangerous in the amounts used, and it's still worth knowing it's there, because cellulose reads like a neutral word on a label until you know what it actually is. We pulled the real ingredient panels on the biggest tortilla brands sitting in American kitchens right now, and we checked every claim against the current label, not an old bag from a few years ago, and not whatever version of the story has been circulating online. 5 to avoid, 2 that actually held onto the original formula. Where an older claim didn't hold up against the label sitting on the shelf today, we're going to say so directly, because getting the brand right matters more than making the list feel dramatic. And the worst brand on this entire list isn't the cheapest bag or the most obviously processed one. It's the tortilla sold specifically to diabetics as the healthy choice. We'll get to it last, because it earns that spot. First, the 2 that actually deserve to be on your table. Let's get into it. Number 5, great value. Kroger's own label, public store brand. Tortillas with no story attached to them at all. No heritage claim on the front of the bag, no family name, no regional pride, nothing to sell you beyond a low price and a picture of a tortilla. That complete absence of identity is exactly why nobody stops to examine what's actually inside. If a brand isn't trying to earn your trust, most shoppers assume there's nothing to distrust either. That assumption is the blind spot. Store brand flour tortillas run on the same industrial lines as the name brands sitting one shelf over, and they lean on the same category of additives to get a soft, shelf-stable tortilla out the other end. 2 of those additives show up so consistently across major tortilla manufacturers in this country, confirmed on current labels we'll walk through later on this list, that they're worth understanding right now. Cellulose gum, a purified fiber pulled from wood pulp or cotton linters used to hold moisture and structure in the dough, and calcium propionate, a mold inhibitor. The reason a flour tortilla can sit in a warm kitchen for weeks without anything happening to it. Real flour, water, and fat left alone go moldy within days. A tortilla that doesn't behave that way isn't more shelf-stable by accident. It's being chemically told not to spoil. Neither of these compounds is exotic or hidden. Cellulose is GRAS, generally recognized as safe under FDA rules, and calcium propionate is one of the most common mold inhibitors in commercial baking, used in everything from sandwich bread to hamburger buns. Naming them isn't an accusation that a plain white bag is doing something illegal. It's pointing out that the bag with no story and the bag with 50 years of heritage marketing behind it are, underneath the packaging, running the exact same chemistry to solve the exact same shelf life problem. Here's the part that actually matters if you're standing in the aisle comparing prices. At the ingredient level, the store brand and the national brand beside it are running the same basic formula, the same additive categories doing the same jobs. What separates a bag of great value from a bag of a name you recognize isn't sourcing, and it isn't a cleaner production process. It's decades of advertising spend baked into the price of the name on the label. A family buying the cheapest bag because the grocery budget demands it isn't getting a meaningfully worse tortilla than the family paying double for the name they trust. That's not a bargain tortilla sitting next to a premium one. That's the same industrial tortilla. One of them just costs more because somebody spent money convincing you it should. Number 4. Mission, the tortilla that's in more American kitchens than any other brand on this list, the one so common it barely registers as a brand at all. It's just what a tortilla is, the default bag you grab without a second thought. Mission's flour tortillas are enriched wheat flour built for scale, and they carry the same core additive strategy running through the rest of this countdown. Cellulose gum for texture, calcium propionate to hold off mold for weeks past when a real dough would have turned. We're not guessing at that. Mission's own carb-conscious line, which we'll get to at number 1, lists both ingredients explicitly on the current label, and its sister brand under the same manufacturer confirms the exact same additive pairing in its flour tortillas too. Here's the detail that actually connects this entire list together, the part that never makes it onto the packaging. Mission and Guerrero, the brand at number 2, are made by the same parent company, Gruma, by its own investor materials, one of the world's leading tortilla and corn flour producers, running more than 70 plants, employing roughly 23,000 people, and generating north of $5 billion in annual net sales across more than 100 countries. Two tortillas that look like they're competing for your grocery cart on two completely different cultural pitches, one the mass market default, one leaning on Mexican heritage, are coming out of the same corporate machine, built on the same industrial chemistry, priced to look like a choice between two different things. That's not two competitors on the shelf. That's one company selling you the illusion of a choice. Give Mission its due for a second, because the concession is real. A tortilla this consistent, this cheap, this available in literally every grocery store in the country is a genuine feat of industrial food production, and it's not nothing that a family on a tight budget can put dinner on the table every night because Mission exists at that price point and that scale. But consistency at that scale isn't the same thing as a clean formula, and a bag that's simply always there isn't the same thing as a bag worth never questioning. Number 3. Old El Paso, the brand that turned a Tuesday into a family institution. The yellow box, hard shells on one side, soft flour tortillas on the other, a seasoning packet in the middle, and a promise that dinner is completely handled. No thinking required, kids happy, week has an anchor. That cultural win is real. Old El Paso didn't just sell a food product. It sold a weekly ritual to an entire country, and it delivered that ritual to every supermarket at a price that made it feel automatic. What's inside the box tells a different story. Start with the seasoning packet, the one poured into ground beef every Tuesday without anyone reading past the front of the label. It lists maltodextrin high up the ingredient panel, a heavily processed starch derived from corn, rice, or wheat, broken down further than flour itself and used as a flavor carrier and texture agent. It carries a glycemic index reported in the range of 106 to 110. Table sugar sits around 65. That means the seasoning in a taco kit can spike blood sugar faster than spooning sugar directly into the pan, even though nothing on the front of the box says sugar anywhere. The same packet lists silicon dioxide, an anti-caking agent that stops the powder from clumping in the jar. Silicon dioxide is silica, chemically the same compound that makes up sand. It's a legally approved anti-caking agent used in trace amounts, and it's also just not what most people picture pouring into dinner. Now the hard shells. An earlier version of this kind of investigation claimed those shells were fried in oil containing TBHQ, a petroleum-derived preservative. We checked the current label directly, and that claim doesn't hold up anymore. Old El Paso's crunchy taco shells today list limed corn flour, palm oil, salt, and folic acid. No TBHQ. Credit where it's due. That's a cleaner ingredient panel than the version of this story that's been circulating online, and repeating an outdated claim wouldn't be fair to the brand as it's actually formulated right now. What we can say honestly is that the shells are fried in palm oil, and TBHQ remains a preservative worth knowing about in general, since it does still show up capped at 0.02% of a food's oil content under FDA rules in plenty of other fried and packaged snacks. Just not confirmed here. One more thing that never makes it onto the yellow box. Old El Paso is owned by General Mills, a corporation running dozens of familiar pantry brands under one roof. The taco kit that feels like a warm, spontaneous family tradition was engineered by a food conglomerate to hit specific cost targets and specific shelf life targets at national scale. The ritual felt personal. The company behind it was solving a manufacturing problem. Give this one its due, too. Getting dinner on the table on a busy Tuesday without a fight, without a plan, without anyone in the house complaining, is a genuinely hard problem for a lot of families. And Old El Paso solved that problem better than almost anyone else in the grocery store. That's a real win, not a marketing illusion. It just isn't the same thing as a clean ingredient panel, and a family can appreciate the convenience while still deciding the seasoning packet or the soft tortillas deserve a second look. If this breakdown is useful to you, a quick like helps this kind of thing reach more people who are about to buy their next box without ever seeing the back of it. Now let's keep going, because the next two brands are where this gets more personal, not less. Number 2, Guerrero, the tortilla whose entire identity is built around being closer to where the tortilla actually came from. Walk into a grocery store serving a Hispanic community, and Guerrero is at the center of the tortilla aisle. The name, the packaging, the shelf placement, all of it signals closeness to the original, the kind of tortilla a grandmother in Michoacan would recognize. That positioning is completely deliberate, and it's doing a specific job for the company standing behind it. Guerrero is owned by Gruma, the same parent company behind Mission at number 4, and by Gruma's own account, one of the world's leading tortilla and corn flour producers, running more than 70 plants across roughly 113 countries. This isn't a family kitchen operating at neighborhood scale. It's a publicly traded, multi-continent industrial company, and the current label backs up exactly what that scale requires. Guerrero's flour tortillas list enriched bleached flour, cellulose gum, distilled monoglycerides, and calcium propionate. The corn tortillas, the ones sold on the promise of a recipe passed down for generations, list cellulose gum and propionic acid too. Even the corn line, the one built on the cultural authenticity pitch, doesn't consistently deliver the 2-ingredient formula the original recipe actually calls for. Here's a test you can run yourself. No lab required. Open a fresh package of Guerrero tortillas and smell them before you cook anything. The aroma is flat, neutral, almost nothing. Real masa made from corn that's been nixtamalized, soaked and cooked in an alkaline lime solution before grinding, smells completely different. Earthy, faintly sour, layered. That aroma is the direct result of a real ingredient being processed the traditional way, and it can't be reproduced with a chemical shortcut. Guerrero doesn't smell like that because the current formula was never built to. Nixtamalization isn't a wellness trend borrowed from social media. It's the process that's made corn nutritionally usable for human beings since long before industrial food existed, and skipping it in favor of speed and shelf life is a real trade, not a neutral one. Families buying Guerrero because the packaging implies someone at the company genuinely cares about doing the tortilla the right way are buying from one of the largest tortilla operations on the planet, running efficiency standards that have very little relationship to the cooking tradition printed on the front of the bag. That's not a family recipe. That's an industrial formula wearing a family recipe's packaging. We saved the worst one for last, and it isn't the brand you'd expect walking into this. It's the one sitting in the health section of the tortilla aisle. Number 1, low-carb tortillas, using Mission's own carb balance line as the label we actually checked. This is the tortilla diabetics reach for because a standard flour tortilla carries too many carbohydrates for a meal to pencil out. It's the one people managing blood sugar calculate carefully into every plate because the net carb number on the front decides whether the whole meal works. And that number does deliver in the narrowest, most technical sense possible. Here's the mechanism behind it because it's genuinely just math, not magic. Nutrition labels calculate net carbs by subtracting fiber from total carbohydrates, since fiber isn't digested and absorbed the way starch and sugar are. Add enough fiber, cellulose modified starch, to a tortilla, and the net carb number on the front drops, even though the total carbohydrate count barely moves. That's a real legitimate labeling mechanic, Not a trick. The question is what it costs the rest of the formula to make a fiber-heavy dough behave like a normal tortilla again. Here's exactly how it gets there. The current label lists roughly 15 ingredients, more than any of the standard tortillas earlier on this list. Past water and modified wheat starch, it lists wheat flour, vital wheat gluten, and wheat gluten isolate. 3 separate wheat-based structural agents doing 3 overlapping jobs because a dough engineered around high fiber and modified starch doesn't hold together on its own the way a simple flour, water, fat dough does. It lists vegetable shortening made from intraesterified and hydrogenated soybean oils. It lists distilled monoglycerides, an emulsifier, right alongside cellulose gum, the same wood pulp-derived fiber confirmed on Guerrero's label 2 spots ago. And then it lists 4 separate acid-based agents in a row: calcium propionate, sodium acid pyrophosphate, sorbic acid, and fumaric acid, stacked together to manage pH, shelf life, and mold in a single small tortilla. Calcium propionate is the same mold inhibitor confirmed on Guerrero's label. One small clinical trial published in the Journal of Pediatrics and Child Health gave 27 children bred with and without calcium propionate and tracked behavior. 52% of the group showed worsened irritability, restlessness, or sleep disturbance on the version containing the additive against 19% on the placebo bred. That's a real published, peer-reviewed finding. It's also a small study in a single sensitive cohort, not a nationwide clinical consensus, and no country has banned calcium propionate on the strength of it. Say that plainly both ways. The finding is real, and it is not conclusive. Calcium propionate remains legally approved and widely used in the United States and the European Union. Here's who's actually eating this. People managing diabetes and metabolic health are, on average, some of the most careful label readers in the entire grocery store. They're tracking net carbs, watching fiber content, checking glycemic impact line by line. They are exactly the shoppers least likely to keep reading 15 ingredients deep to find a mold inhibitor sitting near the bottom of a label they already trusted because the front of the bag said low carb. The health claim lives on one line of the nutrition panel. The formula producing that one line is more heavily engineered than every standard tortilla on this list, including the plain store brand at number 5. That's not a health tortilla. That's the most industrially engineered product on the entire list, wearing a health claim on the front. That's the full avoid list, and it's a lot to sit with. Worth saying plainly before we move on, none of this is illegal. Every ingredient we named is on the label, legally approved, and disclosed exactly as required. The issue was never that these brands broke a rule. It's that almost nobody reading cellulose or calcium propionate on a tortilla bag actually knows what those words mean or what they're doing there. Now, the two that actually kept the original formula, best option number 2, Siete Family Foods, the grain-free tortilla that removed every one of those compounds without removing the tortilla from the table. Siete didn't start as a market opportunity, it started as a medical necessity. Veronica Garza developed autoimmune conditions in her early 20s that required cutting grain out of her diet entirely, and her family's food culture had always centered on the tortilla. Every meal, every gathering built around it. Losing grain meant losing the thing that held the table together. The Garza family spent years developing a tortilla from cassava flour and coconut flour because nothing on any shelf met that need, and what started as one family's solution became a company because other families across the country had the exact same problem with nowhere to turn. Here's what's actually on a Siete cassava tortilla label: cassava flour, water, coconut flour, coconut oil, apple cider vinegar, sea salt, and xanthan gum. No l-cysteine. No cellulose, no calcium propionate, no bleached or enriched flour, none of the mold inhibitors or wood pulp fillers confirmed on the labels earlier in this list. That ingredient list reads in under 10 seconds and makes sense in all 10 of them, which alone puts it in a different category from everything covered so far. Cassava is a root vegetable with a naturally neutral flavor and binding starch of its own, which is exactly why the formula doesn't need a dough conditioner standing in for structure the ingredients already provide. When the base ingredient actually does its job, the recipe doesn't need 8 more compounds compensating for it. The honest trade-off, Siete's shelf life, is genuinely shorter than the industrial brands on this list, and it needs refrigeration or freezing to stay fresh because there's no calcium propionate holding off mold artificially. Think of that as a feature disguised as an inconvenience. A shorter shelf life is direct, physical proof of what isn't in the formula. Buy fewer at a time, use them within the window, and treat the minor hassle as evidence rather than a downside. One more thing worth saying plainly, because burying it would defeat the entire point of this video. Siete was acquired by PepsiCo in a deal that closed in January 2025. The formula and the ingredient list haven't changed as of the most recent labels we checked, and it's sold at Walmart, Target, Whole Foods, and H-E-B nationally, making it the most widely available clean tortilla on the American market right now. But an honest recommendation includes who owns the company making it, not just what's currently printed on the bag. If you've made it this far and found this useful, genuinely, does help more people see this before their next grocery run. Best option number 1. La Tortilla Factory, specifically its organic corn line, 3 ingredients, the original formula, functionally unchanged. La Tortilla Factory was founded in Santa Rosa, California by Jose and Mary Tamio in 1977. Their organic corn tortillas use masa made from stone-ground corn that's been nixtamalized, soaked, and cooked in an alkaline lime solution before grinding, the same corn preparation process used for centuries, applied here without a modern shortcut added for shelf life or production speed. Nixtamalization does 3 specific measurable things. It increases the bioavailability of niacin and tryptophan that would otherwise stay chemically locked inside the corn. It improves calcium and protein digestibility, and it produces the deep, earthy aroma real masa carries, an aroma no industrial tortilla brand on this list has managed to replicate because it isn't a flavor added in. It's what happens when a real ingredient is prepared correctly. The organic line's ingredient list: water, stone-ground organic yellow corn masa flour, organic gar gum, and lime. 4 words, not counting water. No dough conditioners, no mold inhibitors, no cellulose. Worth being precise here, in the spirit of not overselling a brand, just because it's the good one on the list. La Tortilla Factory's other lines, including its conventional handmade style tortillas, do add calcium propionate and sorbic acid for shelf stability. It's specifically the organic corn line earning the top spot here, not the entire product catalog under that name. That distinction matters more than it sounds like it should. A brand's best product and a brand's average product aren't always the same thing. And knowing which one you're actually buying is half of what reading a label is for. Same honest trade-off as Siete. These don't sit at room temperature for weeks. Real masa, without mold-inhibiting chemistry, behaves like real food. It stays fresh for a few days at room temperature and needs the fridge after that, the way bread made from actual ingredients always has. And that's simply what the formula being honest looks like. Open a package before you cook and smell them. Earthy, faintly sour, layered. That's what a corn tortilla is supposed to smell like, and it's something you genuinely cannot get from a formula built around industrial shelf life. Available at Whole Foods, Sprouts, and Latin grocery retailers nationally at a price comparable to Guerrero, the brand at number 2 that built its entire identity on cultural authenticity while running cellulose gum and propionic acid through the dough. Here's a rule that travels with you into any grocery aisle, tortillas or otherwise, not just today's list. Flip the package over and count the ingredients past flour, water, fat, and salt. Those 4 are what a tortilla, or most baked goods, actually need to exist. Every single ingredient beyond that count exists to compensate for something, to extend shelf life past what real food naturally allows, to hold together a dough that fiber or starch additives disrupted, to make a lower grade base ingredient behave like a higher grade one. That number, the count past the basics, isn't a perfect science, but it's a genuinely useful shortcut. 2 ingredients past the basics is worth a second look. 10 or more on a product marketed as the healthy option is worth real skepticism. It won't tell you a product is dangerous. It will tell you in about 15 seconds, roughly how far a formula has drifted from what the food actually needs to exist, and that's usually all you need to know before deciding whether it earns a spot in your cart. Here's what to actually do with all of this the next time you're at the store. Skip the store brand and Mission bags out of habit. They're the same industrial formula wearing different price tags. Skip Old El Paso if the seasoning matters as much to your family as the shells do. The maltodextrin and silicon dioxide aren't dangerous in the amounts used, but they're also not what Taco Tuesday pictures in most people's heads. Skip Guerrero if the cultural authenticity pitch is the reason you're reaching for it, because the ingredient panel doesn't back that pitch up. And think twice before assuming low carb automatically means healthier. Read past the net carb line to the 15 ingredients holding that number together before you decide it's the better choice for a diabetic household. To recap the 5 to avoid: Great Value and other store brands at number 5, running the same commodity chemistry as the name brands beside them, just without the marketing spend attached to the price. Mission at number 4, the default bag built by the same parent company as Guerrero, 2 brands pretending to compete on 2 different stories while running one formula between them. Old El Paso at number 3, the family ritual with maltodextrin and silicon dioxide in the seasoning packet, and a hard shell that's cleaner than the old claims about it, but still fried in palm oil. Guerrero at number 2. Cultural authenticity on the label and industrial cellulose gum and propionic acid in the dough underneath it. And low-carb tortillas at number 1, 15 ingredients of engineering behind a single number on the nutrition panel, sold specifically to the shoppers least likely to keep reading past it. And the 2 that actually kept the original formula, Siete family foods, the grain-free option built from cassava and coconut, honestly labeled and honestly refrigerated, now under PepsiCo ownership but unchanged in formula. And La Tortilla Factory's organic corn line, 3 ingredients, nixtamalized the way corn has been prepared for centuries, nothing added that wasn't already there long before any of this became an industry. None of this means panic throwing out whatever's in your kitchen tonight. It means the next time you're standing in that aisle, you're not choosing based on which yellow box raised you or which name feels more like home. You're choosing based on what's actually printed on the back, and now you know what those words are doing there. If this changed how you're going to read a label tonight, share it with whoever in your house does the grocery shopping, or drop a comment with what you find when you flip over your own bag. That's genuinely the most useful thing you can do with a video like this. Not just watch it, but actually check your own pantry against it. Stay sharp, read the label, and know your food.